Welcome, everybody. We're going to get ready here in just a moment. Let everybody join, get their computers going. Okay. Give people just a minute to join, and then we will get started. Hello, Terry, Brian, Ron, Kimberly, Karen, Stephanie. Hey, Lauren, Justin, Bruno, welcome. Katie, nice to see you. And Laura, second time. Good. I think that Laura or is that Jeff? Probably Jeff. All right. I'll admit people as they come in. It doesn't look like we got anybody in the waiting room. We are recording this. It's going to be on YouTube live right now, so people can join when they want, and we'll also send it afterwards as a follow-up for anybody that wants it on the recording. So welcome. This is our information session on the Lost Coast Challenge brought to you by TSX. We have Chris Casado, the owner and chief adventure officer over at the TSX. He's going to give you an overview of the company and the trip. And I just want to say last year we did 2 trips with TSX. Originally, we just wanted to do one, which was the Mount Whitney trip. It sold out very quickly, so we decided to add on the Grand Canyon trip, and I'm glad we did because we did the Grand Canyon Confluence trip, and it was epic. Um, if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon and been able to hike in the Grand Canyon, it's just an amazing place. And then we followed it up. That was in March, and then in August we did the Whitney trip, which is their flagship TSX challenge, the Trans Sierra Challenge, and it was absolutely epic. All people from Western New York, and yeah, it was great to get out west and see some absolutely amazing views. So I'm gonna turn it over to Chris. He's got a presentation. I'll be monitoring the chat while Chris is presenting. So if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat, or we have a fairly small group. Feel free to chime in with a question. So, Chris, you want to take it away? Oh, you're muted. We were having some technical
There we
difficulties
go.
before. Chris's videos joining us from 1984, but
Sorry.
we will. We got good audio.
I might have some flickers across the screen. Thank you for your patience and just hanging with me. Hopefully the pictures and the presentation do a little bit more. But Mike, thanks for the introduction. It's been awesome having all the people from Western New York come out to California and the West Coast, Arizona, the last past year. Um, I'm the co-founder, as mentioned, I'm the co-founder of TSX Challenge. We organize inspirational backpacking trips for all different ages and experience levels. And it's really great to have you guys here today to have some interest in the Lost Coast. The Lost Coast is one of the newer trips that we have. In terms of the challenge and like physical nature of it, not as daunting as like the Confluence or Mount Whitney, but definitely still just as remote and beautiful and like inspiring. And so this talk hopefully is going to be informational. If you have questions, feel free to jump in. Let's keep this easy going so you guys get the information you're looking for, and we'll go from there. So, any questions initially? All right, ask lots of questions. Please ask lots of questions here. I should have a little slideshow up here to help guide the conversation, but this is just backpacking Lost Coast. We're planning a trip with Outside Chronicles for late April, and have the dates up here in a second. But just to kind of whet your appetite of the Lost Coast, like this is a part of California that very few people ever get to experience. It's on the far northwestern side of California, 4 or 5 hours north of the Bay Area, where you get those classic California sunsets. But right along the beach, you also have these beautiful mountains and 4,000-foot peaks that like literally drop into the ocean. And so you have this like balance of like beautiful ocean, beautiful sunsets, beautiful terrain, and camping right along this coastline. Um, just as a small, again, kind of a small appetite. I got goosebumps just kind of thinking about this, looking at this, but just a small few pictures to whet your appetite. You do have beautiful coastline, opportunities for campfires out there. Some of the hiking is along beaches, some of the hiking is along bluffs. Um, but it's very much approachable, I think, for all different ages, all different skill levels, all different backgrounds. You can kind of see the terrain. Some of the challenges might be like more rocky, more rugged terrain. But there's also lots of opportunity for wildlife and just kind of a wide range of kind of experiences out on the Lost Coast. Just taking a step back, that was a small snapshot of the Lost Coast. A little bit about myself. TSX, we take all different ages, backgrounds, sizes out there to do backpacking trips. This is a small snapshot of some of the people that we've had on the trails. I first started backpacking myself back in the early 90s. I've been backpacking the Sierra, the Grand Canyon, every year, every other year, give or take, since early 1994. I did the Drummer Trail, which is that 200-mile route from Yosemite to Mount Whitney back in 1997. We started TSX Challenge as a way to kind of open up the unique experiences that we've had backpacking in California to touch more people. And some of those experiences are like this. This is what we did this past summer with Outside Chronicles. This was one of the week-long hikes across the Sierra to Mount Whitney that we did. And it was awesome. We had the whole like Buffalo crew up there, like shouting and chanting from the summit of Mount Whitney, which was so fun. I know it was a good opportunity for everyone to get together and try something new and try something different. We also have experiences out in the Grand Canyon. So I grew up backpacking in the Sierra, and I got introduced to the Grand Canyon like in 2014, 2015. We started adding trips out there. Now we actually have like 6 or 7 different routes that we do in the Grand Canyon. And one of the routes we did with Outside Chronicles last year was this trip out to the Confluence, which was again epic 6 night experience. You have some, I recognize some people out here that is just like, having the full exposure of the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon's wildness out there. And when Mike and I were chatting about like, hey, where else can we take, kind of this adventurous group from Western New York? We had some ideas about Hell for Sure, which is kind of another rugged, challenging experience up in the Sierra. We were talking about doing something possibly like Mount Goddard, like a big mountain, a big burly mountain. This is a 13,500-foot peak that we do. Uh, one of the other trips that we have is something called Tehipite Valley. It's a little bit like Yosemite Valley, but with no people, which is really nice. But the profiles of all of these trips are kind of like pretty crazy. This Tehipite Valley, for example, has like this large giant drop where you go over 2,000, roughly 2 miles, dropping 3,000 feet into this remote valley. So came back and we added the Lost Coast to our repertoire, even as TSX, because we were looking for something that's fun, something that's a little bit more low key, something that's rugged, remote, and inspirational still. And these are two guys who work with me, Dave and Dirk. They came back when we were first building our Lost Coast trip, and they're like, "Here's the elevation profile, Chris. And it looks kind of crazy until you take a closer look and you realize that this is the beach at the very bottom, and then this is the parking lot at the very top. So the elevation profile here is roughly 120 feet." And that might really resonate with some people. It's just, I want to enjoy my time out there. I want to enjoy it, get some new wilderness, but not have to push it like Mike likes to push it sometimes in the Adirondacks, I know, or out in the areas that you go to. The Lost Coast like trail, it's like a 3 night, 4 day experience. We're going to add one additional night for the Outside Chronicles, kind of like meeting up in the Bay Area. And I'll give you a little bit more detail on kind of location orientation here in a second. But the dates we're looking for are, roughly speaking, April 20th to April 23rd. This might move plus or minus a day until permits are confirmed, which we'll know hopefully soon after kind of this government shutdown ends. And we're going to be adding in the kind of this pre-night trekking, pre-night lodging the day before as well. I'm going to pause there for a second, see if there's any questions, just kind of what we're talking about, what we're looking for, before we go into kind of more details. And please ask questions. Terry, Bruno, Brian, Ron, you guys good? I'm gonna call you guys out by name here in a second. All right. All right. Jump in with questions. Mike, if you have questions, feel free to jump in as well. A little bit more, we'll hopefully keep this really tight. I'll talk a little bit about orientation, about the Lost Coast, some of the major challenges, which I call the 3 Ts. Give you a small snapshot of like who can complete this trip, and then we'll talk about gears, logistics, and hopefully open up for questions from there. Cool. All right. Feel free to interrupt me. So, where is the Lost Coast and why is this cool? What are we talking about? So, this is an area in Northern California. In fact, when they were building Highway 1 that goes along that famous coastline, they diverted it from the coast and took it inland. because the mountains and terrain was just too rugged. So there's no roads that go along this route. It's completely kind of off the grid by itself. You can see kind of you have San Francisco here down below, the San Francisco Bay Area, and then 4 to 6 hours north is the area that we're talking about. This is the Lost Coast terrain, just above Fort Bragg, below Eureka. Um, the trail itself, here we are like 3 nights, 4 days. It's about 25 miles, roughly speaking, 25, 26 miles. And um, over 3 or 4 nights, that breaks up to about, roughly speaking, 8 miles a day. It can be plus or minus for any given day. In total, if you add up all the elevation gain and loss, we're talking about 1,200 feet cumulative elevation gain and loss. This is like I know what some people do in an hour or 2 hours, like on some of Mike's hikes. So here we're talking about a very different pace, very different experience. It doesn't mean it's necessarily easy though, and I'll tell you why here in a second. In terms of the time of year to backpack the Lost Coast, typically speaking, this is like mid-April to kind of mid-September is the best time frame. That's when it gets the least amount of weather. So we're planning a trip kind of on the front end of that. One benefit is of backpacking in April, May timeframe is that usually the wildflowers are at their peak, and it's a really cool experience to have such beautiful wildflowers out there. Um, Average temperatures are pretty moderate, very comfortable temperatures in terms of hiking wise. Now, question is what makes this a challenge? We call it the Lost Coast Challenge, and there's really kind of three elements of the challenge from my perspective. I call it like the three T's. Um, the first is terrain. Now, 25 miles, 26 miles, not too much. You can manage that, 8 miles a day, roughly speaking, no problem. But the terrain is kind of three different types of terrain. One of it is hiking on sand. And this is like black sand beaches, beautiful remote terrain. It can be a little bit challenging, especially with a heavy pack, stepping into the sand with every step. The second part of the terrain is over like burly, kind of like rugged, rocky terrain. And this is boulders, small boulders, big boulders, where you're kind of picking your way, not necessarily a trail, but picking your way along the coastline. And then roughly a third of it is sand, a third of it is kind of like this rugged terrain. The other third I would say is like this high bluff, which is nice trail, nice easy walking. You can make good pacing with beautiful views and vistas all around. So that's kind of the first challenge, just the terrain in general. The second challenge, which may be even bigger, is transportation. So getting to the Lost Coast is no small feat. It's about a 5.5 plus hour drive from the Bay Area just to get to your trailhead. Then this is a through hike. So we're going to hike in one direction coming down from north to south. Then we have to arrange transportation to get ourselves all the way back. So A, getting to the trailhead, B, hiking down the trail, and then C, we have to get our vehicle and our cars all the way back to pick us up in order to get us back to the Bay Area. So kind of logistics wise, it takes a little bit more planning, a little bit more thought. Since it is a long drive on the way up and on the way down, we try to enjoy the drive. So on the way up, we're going to stop and have like a lunch picnic among the California redwoods to kind of enjoy your time out there and take a small hike and stretch your legs. And then on the arrival day, we usually get there kind of early afternoon. We enjoy this. So this, I think I've talked to some people who are on our previous hikes. We call this our foodie hike. We eat pretty well on this hike, and you'll see some pictures of that in a second. But if we have a large group of 10, 12, 13 people, we're out there for only 3 nights. It means we can take a little bit more and have some fun with the bear cans. And we enjoy that first night, almost car camping kind of out there at Mattole Beach. This is what a first night campsite would look like out there on the beach. So that is kind of the logistics side of things, getting up there, getting down, second big challenge. But the third challenge, and what the Lost Coast is famous for, is the tides. So, in order to execute this trip, you have to time your hike with the tides. That means you can only hike during certain times of the day when it's a low tide to get around these like what are called impassable zones. You can see here, this is a group that's dropping into an impassable zone just as the tides are opening. So the tides are right there pretty much on them. If they were on this part of the trail just an hour before, there'd be crashing waves coming into the shoreline and we wouldn't be able to pass. So there are three major impassable zones on the Lost Coast. A small one up around Punta Gorda to the north, and then two roughly 3 to 4 mile sections of impassable zones. And so when we plan our trips and organize our permits, we like to time it so that we can like get, we have to time it so that we can get from point A to point B when it's low tide, and then the tides come back in. We actually have a couple campsites where we choose that we choose where we camp inside the impassable zones, and the tide comes and tucks us in at night. So we're kind of trapped and locked in there until the tide recedes, which is kind of a cool feeling. This is again what an impassable zone might look like during a high tide. This would be completely um, impassable. These are some of the major landmarks that you can kind of see in there. I have a few sites highlighted. Depending on how our permits get issued, we like to try and camp within the impassable zones when possible. So, for example, we might camp at Kuski Creek on the first night, and on the third night, we may camp at Shipman Creek. Some of the planning behind the scenes that goes into this, we're looking at tide charts. So all of our permits are based off of first looking at the tide charts. We're looking at where the times where we can't go, where are the times where we can go, and then how do we schedule the trips to be kind of the most best flow within that. When the tides do come in, sometimes we're in camp a little bit early, maybe like 1 o'clock even. We try and enjoy our time. When I talk about this, it's a kind of a foodie trip. We eat pretty well out there on the trail. And again, kind of the Lost Coast Trail. I like this because like it's remote, it's rugged, but it's completely approachable. And in fact, over the last, we kind of pride ourselves on taking like lots of different ages and backgrounds and shapes or sizes out there. Um, since 2011, for all of our routes, we've taken actually over 1,000 people on these routes and hopefully give them something that inspires them kind of beyond the trail. And it's been great having people from Western New York on the trail. But again, all different ages, backgrounds, and shapes and sizes can do this. Um, the most important thing is you got to be motivated. Here we have like a kind of a youth troop that we had out there this past year, um, doing some of the stream crossings out there on the Lost Coast. Another crew out there as well. So hopefully it gives you a small sense of kind of the people who can do this. If you're thinking about this for yourself, the most important thing is like you have to have that basic cardio, physical fitness. You want to be able to train and carry a pack, but more importantly, just be mentally tough, positive attitude, and ready for a challenge. The other bonus item that can be a challenge is, sometimes the fog can roll in, which can be a challenge. Sometimes the weather can roll in, which can also be a challenge. And so just dealing with those elements in the outdoors is important. Any questions on kind of logistics, where we're at, or basic things before I kind of move on to gear and safety and some unique features? All right, jump in with questions. If there's anything in the chat, let me know. Um, we will, cool. Let's talk about gear, logistics, and kind of safety, and I'll give you a small snapshot of kind of life from the trail out there. So for the trips that we organize, we make it as easy as possible for those with limited or no experience to kind of go out there and have experience a Lost Coast. So we take care of permits. If you need a backpack, sleeping bag, pad, or tent, we'll provide it for you. If you have your own, you're totally welcome to bring that. No worries. We coordinate transportation to and from kind of our meeting point. In fact, for this group, we're also going to pick you guys up at the airport when you arrive. If you come in as a group, we'll take you to the hotel and we'll make sure you get back to the airport as well. For Outside Chronicles, we're also going to kind of bonus throw in making sure that you guys are covered for the first night when you arrive at the hotel in the Bay Area. So that's all kind of part of our package here. If you are going to be in personal gear, just keep in mind that a backpack should be like 60 liters capacity or greater. That will get you through a multi-night backpacking trip out there on the Lost Coast. If you're going to bring a tent or have a sleeping bag, you want to have something roughly 30-degree Fahrenheit or better. And trail runners are kind of preferred and suggested in the Lost Coast. They're kind of lightweight, they're easygoing. There are many stream crossings, and it's easy to do to kind of clean your shoes out like this on occasion as well. So you can kind of like be ready to go quickly, empty the sand and keep hiking again. Here we go. For food and group pack weight, we do tend to eat a little bit well on the trail. I would say that, in terms of like backpacking stuff, Mike and others may experience this. We go light on our gear, but maybe a little bit heavier on the food. I think food is a very social experience. We like to enjoy our time out there, and so we eat pretty well. Generally speaking, packs on this trek, however, since it's a shorter duration, the packs are a little bit lighter. We don't need to carry a lot of water. Generally speaking, you're just carrying 1 to 2 liters at any given stretch, so there's not a ton of water you need to carry. And the packs get lighter as you go. So generally 25 to 35 pounds is kind of the typical starting weight, and then you get lower as you go from there. You can see we had a bunch of kids out there. They were all just about 25 pounds or less. For food storage, we do have to take bear cans. So it is required. There are bears and lots of other wildlife out there. Um, One unique thing about backpacking on the Lost Coast, people ask, hey, can I swim? Do I bring a swimsuit? And the answer is you can swim in the creeks, but we don't swim in the ocean. This is extremely dangerous ocean. There's sneaker waves, there's rip currents. This is like rugged terrain. And so we are not going to be using the ocean for any other purpose other than helping us out with Leave No Trace. And by this, I mean, in every location that you go, whether you're backpacking into the Grand Canyon or the Sierra, there's a different way to like do number two. And here, the way we do it is we go down and we dig a hole below the high tide mark, take care of business, and then we let the tide take it back out. So we're going to do all of our business on the beach, packing out the toilet paper, of course. No one wants to see the toilet paper, but we're going to do all our business down on the beach. That can be a challenge for some people, but we'll coordinate privacy and all this stuff out there as a group together. But everything's going to be down on the beach. There are stream crossings. It's pretty common for most seasons out there, especially the spring season with us on the West Coast. And there is lots of wildlife. In fact, there's wildlife that comes down and walks the beach every day to kind of like pick up with the shore right in, with the tide right in. Any questions on logistics, even a trace in general?
Chris, I got a question on
Yeah.
wildlife. What could we expect to see?
Oh, this is probably the highest wildlife score that we would have on our on any of our trips. We have elephant seals, sea lions, sea otters, bald eagles, snakes, mussels, and sea anemone, all the intertidal zone like creatures that you would see out there as the tide pools go in. So it's like we stop and pull over and check out the tide pools, the mussels, and everything like that. There's octopus that wash up on the shore. There's deer on the shore. Um, Pretty much everything that you would think about that may exist on the California coastline is out there, and we will see it. Yeah, great question. I might have a few pictures of those coming up. Let's see. Um, so generally the trip, we're gonna start in the Bay Area, drive to Mattole Beach. We do our first night overnight at Mattole Beach, and then we're gonna hike down roughly 6 or 8 miles, camp for the first night, hike another 6 or 8 miles, camp for the third night, and then we'll be hiking out on the fourth day. So this is Mattole Beach, roughly speaking. Beautiful sunset. We usually get there in the afternoon. Early evening, we have time to enjoy ourselves, have a nice meal, getting ready. Some groups, depending on kind of the permitting times, will actually hike that very first day when we arrive at the trailhead. But for most of the groups, we end up staying at the trailhead that first night. Beautiful. There's no lights. We're far away from the crowds, far away from the traffic. This is a remote trailhead. There's no cell service for the first couple days. I will typically be up early in the morning, that first morning, and being out there to get through the first get into or get through the first impossible zone. So it usually means an early morning start to kind of beat the tides. Just a few shots of kind of that first morning on the trail. I love how the sand's always so clean as we're the first ones coming through. Out there on the horizon, eventually, as we're moving through, we do see something called Punta Gorda. This is like an old lighthouse. And typically there's like an old a colony of elephant seals that congregates around this lighthouse. As you approach the lighthouse, you might have the elephant seal kind of right next to you, or as you're on the trail, oftentimes there's a whole pod of them that will be just hanging on the trail. So we make our way around these elephant seals. The lighthouse is a pretty cool feature. Beautiful. You can check it out. On some trips, we actually camp near or at the lighthouse. But along the way of the shoreline, we're just walking right by the elephant seals who are just hanging out on the shore. Along the way, we have some small glimpses like this. Here we are hiking on the high bluffs above Sea Lion Gulch. This is a crew that's coming through the impassable zone. But I would say one unique feature about this, similar to the Grand Canyon, is that the views are always with you. And more importantly, the sound of the ocean is always with you. I think one of the most unique features of this is you get to hear the ocean for like 4 days straight, the constant sound and ebb and flow of the ocean, which is pretty special. Our second night, we might camp on the beach. This is near Spanish Creek, checking out some of the wildlife, checking out some of the wildflowers that would be on the trail. So just hiking through some of the higher bluff. Eventually, we get something called Big Flat Creek. This is kind of where people tend to congregate. A lot of people end up camping at Big Flat Creek, or Miller Creek, which is just before like the last impassable zone. So oftentimes there's certain zones people hike to before they like push on the next morning when the tides are kind of more favorable. Some of the impassable zones again with some of the more rugged trail that you might see here. This is one of the campsites we like to use, Shipman Creek, a small kind of creek tucked in one of the impassable zones. It's a great spot to have a fire. Great spot that just kind of tucks you in for the night as the tide comes in. And then the final day is usually the home stretch to something called Black Sand Beach. And it's a nice long 7 mile walk along the beach, all the way back towards Shelter Cove. And at the end of our hike, we get to this beautiful, quaint little town called Shelter Cove. Sometimes we'll have a nice little meal there. Sometimes we'll drive back, depending on kind of the pacing of the group and the pacing of the permits, and make our way to get back towards the Bay Area. But this trail has had an incredibly positive impact on me and my family. I'll show you a picture of that in a second. It's had a positive impact on lots of other people in our community. I've been fortunate this last year, I was able to take my youngest daughter backpacking on the trip. And she was out there with 7 or 8 Girl Scouts and 4 or 5 moms and dads. And it was awesome. And then last year, I was able to take, the year before that, I was able to take my older daughter out on the trail as well. So a great time to disconnect from people, disconnect from crowds, leave the email, leave the internet, leave the cell phone and the news cycle behind, and hopefully find a moment that can renew renew the spirit and hopefully provide the inspiration that can last a lifetime. So I'll kind of hopefully keep it tight and simple as there. I know we do have the dates for April 20th to April 23rd. We can take up to 13 participants on this hike, and I believe at the moment we have 5 or 6 spots remaining, a handful of spots remaining. So we'd love to have you out there. Um, there's more information on how to sign up. I think Mike will be sharing a link, but it looks like this on their website. We have kind of like a sign up button with Outside Chronicles delineated that there. Please know that even though it looks like the same thing, there's 2 bonus items that are pretty much included for Outside Chronicles, which is the first night hotel stay, which we'll just add on the back end, updating your invoice, and also including the shuttles to and from kind of the meeting points to the trail, from the airport to our meeting point in the hotels. If you have questions, comments, ideas, you can shoot me an email, send me a text, connect with us on social media. Even if you're thinking about trips for yourself, please use us as an open book. We're happy to help and share as much as we can so you have a safe and enjoyable trip out there, either this year or in years to come. With that, Mike, I'll open it
Yep,
up.
there's a couple questions in the chat. So Laura asked, what is the usual time to get going every day?
Hey, Laura, the usual time to get going to every day depends on the tides. So I've already kind of looked at the tides for this route. Usually I think the first morning is an early start, and the next second morning is more of a leisurely day. And the third morning would be like on the trail by 8 a.m. So usually it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours before that to wake up, prep meals, enjoy yourselves, and pack up. So it looks like the first morning would be an early morning start. We're thinking, in California in April, the sun rises roughly by 6:30. So maybe on the trail between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. The next day, probably on the trail a little bit later, maybe between. There's really no hurry the second day. So we'll just kind of take it as it comes. This will also depend on weather and any other factors like this, group dynamics as well.
And then there was Elena asked, how much are we typically carrying on our backs each day, and what's the range?
Yeah, typically 25 to 30 pounds is the target range. If you're taking a little bit extras, chairs, nice camera, tripod, War and Peace novel, that might get you up to 35 pounds. But yeah, I'd say 30 to 35 pounds is probably a typical starting point.
And then which airport for pickup? We'll probably coordinate together. What's easiest for you, Chris?
Yeah, whatever's most, economical and best timing for you guys is works for us. Oakland Airport is a great Southwest airport. I know which is has a connection through Buffalo. Oakland or SFO, either one would work for us.
Okay.
Yeah,
Coffee. Yes, there is coffee, and you can bring extra if you wanted to.
100%. Yeah.
Uh, Chris, it's Jeff as Laura, talking as Laura. Do you have two-person tents?
Yes. So we have a two-person tent, and we provide those if you prefer, or we have a one-person tent, whatever is easiest for you. 100%.
Any other questions, guys? Either throw them in the chat or
So
unmute yourself.
I would say this is a pretty enjoyable trip. Like every day is really enjoyable. Like some days, the Confluence and the Whitney trips, we push it pretty hard. This one is challenging in a different way. Like the trail is challenging. The weather can be challenging. I don't want to understate that. But in terms of like the experience in general, we eat well. We have a good time together and enjoy each other's company. And you're out there in nature the whole time with beautiful scenery all around you, which is a pretty cool thing.
So it's 3 nights of camping, or it just kind of the how many nights from kind of start to finish? I know there's a hotel night like bookending the trip. Is that
Right. So the first arrival night, if you guys came in, and this again, I know everyone has different parameters or flexibility. So if you want to come to California, enjoy California before or stay afterwards, that's totally up to you. But the way we're kind of putting this together is the first night would be at a hotel. So arrive, we take you guys to the hotel, check in the hotel, and you're covered. The next morning, we begin our drive up to the northern terminus, which is Mattole Beach. On the way up, we'll stop and have lunch, experience the redwoods, camp at the trailhead, which is camping the first night, and then the 2 more nights on the trail. So 3 nights of camping, one night at the hotel, 4 nights altogether, 5 days in total.
okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Lena.
So, Chris, I have a question. What's the weather like in April? You showed the temperature range, but weather in terms of wind or precip?
Yeah, so there's a chance of precipitation still. Usually that's through, the storm cycle in California is roughly mid-October through, early April. So April 1 is when they typically end the storm season in California. That could extend a little bit longer, of course, April and May. We have this trip planned kind of at the end of April, which is usually pretty good. There's a chance of rain, but usually it's not a big Pacific storm. Um, the weather, the wildflowers are usually perfect. What was the other part of the question there? I'm sorry.
Wind.
Yeah, wind. Yeah, so we go from north to south, and that is with the wind at our backs. So all of the trips we have kind of have the favorable wind advantage.
My wife is giving
I
two
would say
thumbs
wind.
up on an answer. Thanks.
Yeah, wind will pick up. I will say this. So you're on the coastline, right? So you have that wind differential. If you have a warm day in California, it's a cold day on the ocean usually. If you have a cooler day in California, it's a pretty nice day on the ocean. That's because you're having that breeze that pulls from the ocean and drives inland. And so usually around sunset, it's pretty windy. Right as the sun's going down and the temperature changes happening. Sunrise also pretty windy, but during the day more stable. And during the evenings.
Awesome. Thanks.
And the price includes pretty much all the food, all the the overnight stuff, the hotel, and
That's
everything except the plane travel. Is that
That's correct. So the price would include all the hotel, the transportation to and from the hotel, and all the food in the backcountry. So not the front country. If you're gonna get a bite to eat the night before or something like that, that'd be on you, or after the
Mhm.
trip, the front country. But when we kind of depart at 8 a.m. the morning from your hotel, all the way through when we return back to your hotel, or all the way to return back to the front country again, that would be covered.
Okay. And the major gear like tents and sleeping bags and stuff like that. Okay.
All taken care of, correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Laura. I'm with Jeff.
Hey, Laura.
But Chris, Jeff really enjoyed the Whitney trip. So I'm looking forward to sharing in this trip with you guys. And
Awesome.
Elena had asked if the trip included airfare. So I hope she knows that it does not include the airfare.
That's correct.
Yeah, I got yeah. Thank you. Sounds awesome. It really does.
Cool. It's fun.
Hopefully you can join us.
Yeah. So, like 4 or 5 more spots, roughly. You have?
I believe there's 6 spots that
Okay.
are technically open at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They will go quick.
Yeah, I know.
So if you are interested or on the fence, they'll go quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Well, I'll stick around as long as you guys have questions to ask. Otherwise, Mike, thanks so much for hosting us. And dude, you're awesome. You get the program you guys have in Western New York is amazing. So we're glad to be a part of it and to share kind of our West Coast experiences with you guys. So
Yeah,
thank
it's
you
fun.
for
It's definitely getting us to some great places. We'll continue to do it. If people want to go, I'm in.
Cool.
Any other questions, guys? Katie or Kimberly, Tony, Karen, anything that we can answer for you guys? Terry? I'm excited, Laura, that you're going to join Jeff. That's amazing.
It looks
Laura,
like an amazing experience.
Yeah.
I've never been to California, so this will be cool.
awesome. I'm excited.
It
So the
sounds
one,
like you have some repeat customers,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
Katie, totally. Katie said she's only backpacked for one night. Think I could handle this? Absolutely.
yeah, a little more approachable. The one thing I just want to also just remind, so
And just so you know, I can call her Katie because we grew up together on the same street.
the one thing I just wanted to remind people, just as we're just, so we have our dates listed. We expect to get permitted for those dates. It is like the process they have, like, however, it's not it's not it's still taking place. So
Mhm.
with the government shutdown, we're hoping to kind of get those permits lined up with more confidence as soon as they come back to work.
Right. So
It
so
could move
plus or minus a day or two, right?
yeah. If you think about it from that perspective, that's great. And then so don't book your flight right away. We'll make sure we're communicating with Mike and getting the right messaging out or right information out to make sure you guys have it dialed in for the right dates. And if everything were to change until those dates are finalized, it's completely refundable. We'll work with you, no worries. If anyone to challenge, just let us know.
And if there's anyone new on here that has not done any trips with Mike before, Mike's always got your back. So don't worry about anything.
Sort of. Most of the time. So Carrie has another, probably for some of your other trips, Chris. The push pretty hard. I can say, the Confluence, the Grand Canyon trip, we did 13 miles out to the Confluence. It was 95 degrees. It wasn't an easy, and it's not an easy hike. The terrain is tough, lots of ups and downs, elevation change. Um, it wasn't an easy hike. You climb out of the Grand Canyon. It's 5,000 feet of climbing. I think we did it over 2 days. Climbed in and climbed out over 2 days, but it's still a pretty decent amount of climbing. On the Whitney trip, I don't know what each day was, but there were some, probably 12-mile days with some, pretty significant climbing. Whether it was over Colby Pass or the Mount Whitney Day, decent amount of miles, a lot of climbing. I would say that the big difference, at least on the Sierra trip for me, um, the actual trails, you can move a little bit easier and faster on. They're more gravel trails as opposed to some of the stuff that we're used to if you've been to the Adirondacks and the Northeast that are, very rocky scrambles. Um, but it's definitely none of them are easy. Like you're climbing, whether you 3,000 feet over, a couple miles is still 3,000 feet over a couple miles. So even though you don't get beat up on the trails the same way, you're still climbing. And like the Sierra trip, you're at elevation, you're 10,000 feet, 12,000 feet, 14,000 feet. So that definitely affects some people too. But if you're thinking about it, both of those trips were just epic. And some of the other routes TSX have is just epic.
Thanks, Mike.
Laura, or Jeff, do you know who's guiding this trip? Probably not yet, right?
Probably not yet. I know Kelsey is tentatively penciled in, but I can't confirm yet. Or maybe myself. I can't confirm at the moment. I would say that all the guys are awesome and way cooler than me. I've been fortunate to be on the last two trips with you guys, which I enjoy as well. So, but you can't go wrong. Most of them are. The
I
biggest
think
criteria.
I think we'd be honored to have you, Chris, but it's
Yeah.
your call. I
I'd love to join
understand.
you. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I'd love to join you if it fits. Yeah. Kelsey's really good on this trail though. She's the marine biologist person and she's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions, guys?
Mike, just question on your side for logistics after we're signed up, when would we start getting communication from you regarding flights or, timing to try to have the group all arrive around the same time to
Mhm.
make transportation logistics easier?
Yeah, we can start that like as soon as we confirm the trip that we've got almost full. So I'm expecting it to fill up in the next few days, I would think, based on feedback that I've gotten from people that want to go on this. So as soon as we can confirm the trip with TSX that we have enough people, we can start making those logistics. So I'll send out emails. This is the best looking flight, or we might wait a few days to see how prices go. But we'll try to get everybody on similar flights, if not the same flight, out of Buffalo. I know Jeff, for example, he came from Rochester. So he arrived at the airport almost similar to us. There's two groups that arrived at the airport, and uh, Chris was able to accommodate that, but we'll try the best we can to just try to travel together. That's not always the case with people's work, and I know some people have already expressed interest in coming a couple days earlier and doing some sightseeing in San Francisco. But generally we'll try to get on the same flights. Some people might have
So
points,
basically,
we
just
might
keep an
fly
eye out.
Southwest and you might have points on American and want to use those, but we'll try to coordinate the best we can.
Okay, but basically, just keep an eye out for email communication from you once the trip is confirmed.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I just booked my Grand Canyon flights for the winter for rafting, and
Awesome.
it looks like I'll be booking Peru trips or Peru
I saw
flights,
that,
and
man. That's pretty awesome.
hopefully San Francisco. I love San Francisco.
I want to ask you about the Peru, the Cusco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else, guys? All right. Well, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Chris directly. he's going to know the answers, but feel free to reach out to me. And if, we can answer any questions and get you over the hump to go on this trip, I think you'll really enjoy it. And, look out, we're going to, look at their other trips if this one doesn't fit yours. And we'll probably do, next summer, spring and summer, fall, whatever it might be, we'll do more trips because I can see some of the other ones in our future as well. So we're trying to do a variety of different things. So we did some hard ones last year. This one's a little bit more accessible for, people that don't want big mountains. And I'm excited to experience it with you guys. It looks pretty epic. Everybody that's been on it that I've talked to says it's a, very memorable route through that area.
Cool. Thank you,
Cool.
Mike.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop the live stream.